Okay, Tonya, we have a tough act to follow.
Yes.
Oh, okay. Not only Jason Sachs, Sir Sharam, and Allison Ball, and
Yeah.
Dave Kirby and Hope Blankenship. Oh my goodness.
Yes.
The pressure is on. So
You're not lying.
let's kill this. So
I'm down. Let's do it.
All right. So why don't you take a quick minute, introduce yourself. We'll save most of the time for content.
Awesome. Yeah. I am Tonya Schulte. I'm the founder of the Profit Constructors, where we help all of our construction clients run with the big dogs. I also lead the Construction Junction Roundtable at your Roundtable Labs, Richard, as you well know.
Yes.
And I also host a podcast called the Construction Junction Podcast.
You are a busy person, Tonya.
Very much so.
In addition to that, you're also doing a heck of a lot of co-firming, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute. But I'm Richard Roppa-Roberts. I am with Roundtable Labs and Quasar Cowboy. I'm on the web. Feel free to look me up if you need more info on either. But I want to jump into our content today. So our session is about how to align clients to your firm's workflow processes. And Tonya, I'm so glad that they paired us up for this conversation today, because you have some really unique scenarios, but I think they really do apply across the board. So I'm going to set the stage. You work with a number of other accounting firms, much more than just a referral relationship. You actually are doing the work with them, and you have multiple financial sense accounts that you're working with. So when you're onboarding clients, what is one of the most difficult things? Because you've got variables all over the place between the clients, between their employees and their helpers and and the people that you're co-firming with from other organizations who may have very different cultures and workflows and all the things. So set the stage and tell us how you even can imagine getting all those people on the same workflows.
Yeah. So I think one thing is I'm going to give a big shout out to my team and their commitment to what we do, which is consistency. And when I say team, I'm talking about my internal team. I have the most amazing operations manager. She dials everything in and makes sure that the entire team has consistency of process across the board, especially during onboarding, which is when this topic that we're talking about is the most important, right? If we don't nail it during onboarding and help our clients really see what our process is and that we are consistent in that process and that it's good for them. You know, the radio station WIFM, what's in it for me, right? If we don't nail that during onboarding, then a lot of times the clients aren't going to get into this process role, and it's going to be much, much harder down the line. So our operations manager does all of our onboarding and she nails it, but she also nails helping each one of our team members, both internally and externally, get into that consistent flow of process, right? And so it's just 100% about consistency across the board.
Do you mind walking us through what that kind of onboarding looks like?
Yeah.
You can do it at a 50,000 foot level or a 200 foot level, but either way, just walk through what that looks like.
Yeah. For us in financial sense, it's broken down into two projects. There's an initial onboarding, which is when we're going to go in and do our discovery work. So we have to have...
Let me pause you.
Yeah.
Tons of comments. It is on your end. They're saying they're getting feedback. Adjust the gain or switch mics if you have the ability.
Yep. You know what? Let me just switch mics because I think that's going to be the best answer here. Give me just 1 second, guys, and I will.
Sorry, everybody. We're getting back to it. So all the time we saved in the intros, we're gonna make up for here right now. So she'll be back with us in just a second.
Did that work, y'all? Can you hear me now?
I didn't hear feedback, so give us some thumbs up if it worked. It worked, Tonya.
Yay! Is that better?
Everybody's saying it's much better. We got
awesome.
Thumbs up.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
All right.
Yeah, no, it's consistency of process. So onboarding is 2 parts for us. It's discovery onboarding. And then once they've signed and they're ready to move on and do implementation monthly work, there's a secondary onboarding process. But I think the consistent side of that is that, we're every single thing that we're doing. It's Jennifer, who is not an accountant, our onboarding specialist, our operations manager. So when she asks the client to deliver some document or piece of information, if they ask why, she's like, because it's part of the process. Because I cannot hand this off to any of the cleanup specialists or bookkeepers until I get this proceduralized set of documents from you. And so the nice part about that is she doesn't even have to try to get into any accounting speak with them. She just says, this is how we do it. And the bookkeeper understands that she's going to need this information before she can move on.
Now we're having the feedback from my side. Give me 10 seconds. Tonya, now you just have to extemporaneously talk about something while I fix my mind.
I'll keep talking. I'll talk about our consistency of process. I think the onboarding piece, like I said, is key because during that onboarding, we also are doing things like teaching them how to use Slack. We are teaching them how to use Financial Sense. We're teaching them all of those things during onboarding. And so when we do that, the teaching of each of those things, it consistently reinforces that we have a built-in process and there's a reason for it and that there's something in it for them.
Okay, so I'm going to test. Give us some thumbs up. Is that good? All right.
Yep. I agree with Nancy. She just said it's my voice coming through your speaker that's causing the feedback. That's what it sounds like to me too.
Interesting. All right. Well,
all good.
We're going to move past that. Show must go on.
Yeah.
So I didn't hear the last thing that you said, which is going to cue my next question. So please catch me up to where we were. Sorry.
No, it's all good. I was just saying consistency of process. So during that onboarding, we're walking our clients through the tools and processes that we use, introducing those tools and processes, introducing why we use them. I think that's a big piece of it, right? Like just slapping something in front of your client saying, hey, we're going to use Slack. You have to use Slack. That's it. That's the only choice you have. Use Slack. That's not helpful in any way. So when we onboard them onto Slack, we tell them, hey, you're going to love this because it's just like texting on your phone. We're going to help you download it to your phone. We're going to help you set it up. If you have questions, we'll get into another session with you. Like we're consistently preaching what's in it for them and helping them learn how to use it until they love it just as much as we do.
I love that. Now, what are some of the pitfalls that you've run into when working with those clients? Let's say they don't want to adapt to Slack. What do you do then?
We're pretty solid in our culture that Slack is where we are going to communicate, right? And so one thing, like I said, is from the beginning, we're consistently helping them see why it's better for them. So that's a big piece of this. The other thing is, you guys all know, because you've worked with clients and sometimes they just start sort of slipping back into old habits, right? Where they're like, I'm just going to email Tonya. It's easier on my end, right? I forgot that I'm supposed to Slack this particular thing that she asked me to Slack. So that is another area where our operations manager, Jennifer, just absolutely shines. And every once in a while, she'll offer to help people in Slack, offer to do a whole other like an onboarding session with them to get them back into using Slack. Most recently, she sent a whole message, which was fantastic, that had like a picture of the Mandalorian, if any of you are familiar with the Star Wars character, the Mandalorian, that just reminded every one of our clients, thank you so much for using Slack. This is the way. It's better for you. And they all loved it, right? So there's some fun in it. There's some playfulness in it. And it's also that little sort of like, you're part of our culture and you're part of the in crowd because you're using Slack with us. This is the way, right? It's like a cultural, you're building up that culture with your clients.
I love that. Now, let's talk about workflows. Do you get your client involved in the workflows? Do they see the in-depth, what's being done day to day, week to week, month to month? Or are they kind of in the dark and you're just going about doing your things and communicating via Slack?
We did this wrong in the past. I really believe that we did it wrong. We kept them in the dark a lot, which was confusing for them. It was disheartening sometimes for them because it couldn't tell if things were moving forward. So one of the most recent changes that we've made to that is in one of our very first secondary onboarding calls. Once we moved past discovery, in one of those first calls, we just get onto a Zoom with them and we show them Financial Sense. And we say, look, we have this cleanup project laid out for you, and these are the steps. Remember, this was what was in your engagement letter. These were all the steps we were going to do for you during cleanup. This matches that. There may be more cleanup steps added as we begin to dig in. And so we just slowly walk them through how we're going to use Financial Sense. And then all along the way, even though they don't have access to see our task list, we'll send them a little update saying, there are these 7 tasks, and this one is this much done. This one we still need information from you to complete. We just continuously update them, especially during that cleanup phase, on what's happening. Now, on monthly and weekly things, that stuff just sort of starts to flow. They start to understand what their need is going to be in that process. And then we can do away with sort of continuously updating them on that regular recurring process. But during that implementation and cleanup and onboarding phase, they really crave those regular updates.
Tonya, I'm going to go to a question that really just jumped out at me from the chat, and it's from our friend Christine. Seems like that will be overwhelming to the customer. Now, I've been involved with some of these customers. I think that's the least confusing part of the process. Most of the time, I think the more confusing part is the Cantonese to English translation rather than here's everything that we're going to be doing. So talk to that if you don't mind for a moment. I keep having to mute myself because people are complaining. So
it's totally fine. I got you, Richard. I will say, I think I thought that too. I always felt like they just hired us and they wanted us to do the work. But I have found that the more open and transparent we've been, somewhat like Angela was saying about with her team, right? The more that they can see the inner workings, the more comfortable that they feel. It's a comfort level that we're actually doing something, right? Because especially in that cleanup implementation phase where you're like, I have 14,000 customers that I'm going to go through for you and figure out which ones you have done work with in the last 2 years and clean that out. Like, they don't need to know all of that. They just need to see, and this is what we have on our Financial Sense list, cleanup of client list, right? And so we're just giving them the bare bones of like, we're going to clean up your client list for you. And if we're halfway done with that, this is why. If we have 4 questions for you about these clients can't be closed because there's open projects, whatever, we'll let you know that. But it's a very simple just task list, right? We're going to clean up your vendor list for you. We're going to clean up your client list for you. We're going to clean up your chart of accounts for you. So they get the high level of what we're going to do. And then as they get down in the weeds, they know exactly what that correlates back to and what we need from them.
Do you actually share with them the procedures, the secret sauce, or are you just providing a 50,000 foot overview?
Just the 50,000 foot overview.
That's what I thought. I wanted to clarify and make sure because that would get overwhelming.
Yeah. Yeah, in our Financial Sense, we have a project list. The procedures are hidden in the tasks, right? So we're not giving them the inside view of what every one of those tasks entails. We're just saying a task of your cleanup project is clean up your chart of accounts, clean up your client list, clean up your vendor list. So we're just giving them that 50,000 foot view, but also that gives them something. My mom, as you know, Richard, is a great wordsmith, and she always says people need something to hang their hat on. You need to give them hat hooks. And so when we give them that list, which is that 50,000 foot list, they have something that they can hang their hat on, that they can trust to say, okay, there's a system that's happening on the back end, even though I can't see it happening. But when Tonya tells me she's going to clean up my chart of accounts, that's a thing she's going to do. And she can tell me she's 40% complete with it.
I love the idea of hat hooks because they don't get into the weeds with you. You're right. Just giving them. It's like the way that I think about it is if I go to the mechanic and they start sharing with me every detail about what they're doing with my engine, first of all, my eyes glaze over. I have never lifted the hood of the car ever. So when they start talking about this and that and all the things that I just have no concept of, I want to run as fast as I can. I would rather them say, we're changing this belt, we're doing this thing, we're adjusting this and that. I don't even know the terms to say. That's how ridiculous it is. But guess what? That's how they feel with accounting. Am I right?
You're absolutely right. And There is some of that, right? Like it's exactly the same thing. We're sort of just handing them the list of like, here are the things we're going to do for you over there in the garage, right? They need that. It would be really bad if you went into your mechanic and they said, hey, we're going to fix a bunch of stuff. Here's a bill for $3,853. You would want to know what that bill was for.
I'm going to be honest. I'm in the camp of, does it need that work? If it does, great. $3,458 is no problem. But what I want to know is, am I going to be safe? It's results. Is it going to be safe? Is it going to make my life easier in the car? Is it going to give me longer lifespan on the car? All the things that matter.
That's true, but also if they had your car for 4 weeks and didn't communicate with you at all and hadn't told you any sort of timeline, you would want to know what was going on. And so that's what they're hanging their hook. That's where they're hanging their hat. So we're telling them what the charges are for. It's a list of replacing this belt, replacing this oil filter, replacing this air filter, whatever the things are. It's the list. And then it's also, okay, we had to order the belt and it's on a slow boat from China, so we'll have our car back to you in 3 weeks. Or, hey, we got into that client list and there were this many sticky clients that we can't inactivate. We need your help to understand why these projects haven't been closed. All of those things. But then they have that frame of reference that you told them up front. One of the tasks we're doing is cleaning up your client list. Here's why we're asking you these questions.
Excellent. I know I was muted. How do you handle non-tech savvy clients? I think that's a crazy important thing that really needs to come out, because I hear it all the time from my clients. I love that I've set up this guardrail system. I've got Financial Sense. I've got Lisio. I've got all these things, and their clients are overwhelmed with all the tech.
Mm-hmm.
How do you overcome that?
For us, again, it's all about culture. So I've already talked about how we love to build a particular type of client culture. And we actively market to and engage with clients who are tech savvy. So for us personally at the Profit Constructors, we can tell usually during discovery whether or not a client's going to be tech savvy. And if they're not, we often try to help them find a better fit for them. So that's piece one for us, particularly at the Profit Constructors. I think we just don't work with a client if they're not going to be able to get involved with the tech. And again, I go back to this radio station, WIFM. What's in it for that client in that initial discovery stage when you say to them, you know what, this doesn't look like it's going to be a good fit because you just don't love the fact that we're not going to print paper checks for you and that we're not going to print paper lien waivers for you, all the things that they may be interested in having that aren't techie. And when I say to them, but I have a great referral for you, someone who will print your paper checks for you, they would much rather that I say that to them in that discovery phase and pass them off to the gentleman down the street. I actually literally have an accountant that lives here in Phoenix that does a lot of non-technical things and likes to go to people's offices. And so I call him up every time I have someone like that. So for us, it's a cultural piece that we just tend to engage with clients who are going to get into the tech that we're into and do it. And I think there's a wide range in between there. And I think that each accountant firm owner should decide what type of client they want to work with, make their list of this is my ideal client, this is how I want them to operate, and this is what they need to have. And then just help bring in clients that fit that culture.
So Tonya, what happens if they hit 8 out of 10 of those buttons?
It depends on which of the 8 they are, right?
Right. Of course.
So for instance, if they're just adamantly opposed to using Slack, it's not going to be a good fit.
Okay.
We use Slack. If let's say they don't necessarily fully understand how to use a system like Notify, which is the system of choice for us here at the Profit Constructors that ties into QuickBooks Online, depending on why they're not so savvy in that, we may be able to do some training and train them up, right? Like we definitely offer training in tech. So I think it depends on what are the buttons that they're hitting or not hitting.
I think that's a completely fair way to look at it. I know for me, if somebody doesn't hit Slack in my world, I'm going to force them into it almost. And I hate to say it like that, but it's very true. in my engagement letter, it says, this will be the last email that I send to you.
Mhm.
I expect the same. I want all, and I'm adamant, all communication in Slack. I actively don't look at email because email is such a time suck. I wouldn't be able to work if I had to look at email all day long. So I have learned that if I silo clients into a system and sometimes push them and force them and, drag them while they're kicking and screaming, in about 6 weeks, there is a much better client experience than if I tried to stumble through getting to random email conversations that are buried amongst hundreds of meeting acceptances and all the things that go into an inbox. So I feel this. I feel this deep to my core is get them onto your systems and get them onto your systems early and establish what that timeline looks like for acceptance. For you, it's about discovery.
Yes.
For me, it is about the first month. If they aren't in tune by the first month, I do bring them dragging and kicking and screaming and say, what's going on? Why do you keep emailing me? The first couple, I let it go. The third one, I ignore. And I'm saying this publicly. I do that with everybody.
I do you one better, Richard. If anyone emails me, they will get a bounce back that says, I really don't read my emails. It may be 2 or 3 days or longer before I'm going to get back to you about this email. But if you are our client, I will not answer this email. Go reach out in Slack.
I have to admit, and I think you saw it actually, and sent me an LOL, which cracked me up because you sent it in email. I sent you an email the other day simply so I got your autoresponder.
Yes.
I wanted to show it to a client because it's ingenious. It is setting the stage, saying these are my guardrails. I am not moving beyond this guardrail. If you're going to email me, don't expect a response for quite a few days. And if you're a client, reach out over here in the approved channel that we all have agreed to. So I love what you're doing. And Tonya, the verbiage that you have, and you're going to get a lot of people, I think, emailing you right now. So email Tonya and just say, I'm sending this just for the autoresponder. I'm not giving out your email address, Tonya. Don't
I
worry.
will. I don't care.
There you go. It is magnificent wording. Her email address is Tonya with an O, Tonya, at theprofitconstructors.com. You'll love the autoresponder. Put in the subject, sending, just so I get the auto response so she knows. All right, so we've got just a few more minutes. I want to go to the Q&A. You ready for some random?
Let's do it.
Let's
down.
Speakers questions.
Yeah.
See what we got. So, all right. I'm sorry, this is very different. How do you align long-term clients that were, I'm sorry, I can't read this.
I got it, Richard. So how do you align long-term clients that are with you since before the digital workflow revolution? How to eliminate bad habits? This is actually something that our team has had to handle, right? Because we didn't always have the workflows established that we do now. And the quick answer is that when we established these workflows that we have with all of our clients who are on board, so for instance, when we made the switch and said we were for sure going to switch to Slack, we did a big client push, right? So we sent them an email introducing what it was going to be. We told them all the benefits that were in it for them. We told them when we were going to be doing it. Then we did that again. Then we did a Zoom one-on-one with each of them to get them on board. So we took a lot of time to get them acclimated to a new system because we understood that we had in the past enabled habits that we no longer wanted to enable, right? So we just had to invest in clients we wanted to keep and say, we want to keep you. Here's the reason we're doing this. Come along with us. And some did and some didn't. And that was okay. The ones that didn't aren't our clients anymore.
I love the way you did that. And I'm going to say flat out, I do the same thing in my firm. I if I have somebody who is not at the technological space that they could be, I'm gonna bring them there, and I'm gonna use every tool in my tool belt to get them there. And that means extra training, that means extra walkthroughs, answering questions, but really it's about discovering the why, Tonya. So now I can see it was a simple fix to full screen everything because I had it just so I could see Tonya and myself. So the question here, Tonya, and this might be a little bit of a gotcha, but I love it, and I am thrilled that this is a question. Why Slack and not FC?
It's not one or the other. So this is how our team describes it to clients when we're onboarding them. And like I said, we do a whole hour-long Zoom where we explain everything that we want from communication-wise with them, and then we reiterate that over the several months of onboarding. But we use Slack. I always describe it like this. I tell my clients, hey, if you and I were sitting in the office together and you were on the other side of a cubicle wall and I could lean around the cubicle wall and say, hey, Richard, do you have a few minutes to answer a question for me? And you could just verbally answer the question. That's how we're going to use Slack. Financial Sense is where all of our workflows are that our team is working in. And when they request documents from you, they will request documents from you in Financial Sense, and we require you to send documents in Financial Sense. So please don't send us documents in Financial Sense. And if you have a workflow related question, you can put that to your bookkeeper in Financial Sense. But if you just have like a real quick question around, hey, I don't know why this bill is still sitting out here. I think we had collected on that. Maybe something's going wrong in the AR. That's a great question to go into Slack.
We got a lot of reaction on that question, and I couldn't tell if it was good or bad reaction, but I just saw things flying all over the screen. So yay there.
I saw wows, so I don't know what wow means.
Okay, yeah, I don't either. I couldn't tell if it was like wow or wow. So I hope some eyes were opened on that.
I love Amy's question in the chat. Sorry, she just said why Slack and not texts on your business cell. And because we have too many team members and we co-firm, so there's no way that our co-firming partners would be able to interact with our clients easily through any sort of Slack or any sort of text application. So it has to be through Slack so our co-firming partners can be involved.
Yeah, and I do love the way that you have separated the two. Slack is for those not water cooler conversations, but cubicle conversations.
Yes.
The one where you happen to be walking by.
Yep.
And then Financial Sense is for document requests, hard needs for accounting. I like the distinction there a lot. So the next question, Tonya, is would you be willing to share your Financial Sense onboarding template?
Yes, I have done that so many times, and yes.
Beautiful. Well, there you go. She will share. How do they get it, Tonya? We gave out your email address.
There you go.
Okay.
Yeah, if you email me, I will say you'll get a bounce back. It'll be a few days, and then I'll let Jennifer know. If you do say in the email, I'd like to have your onboarding template, I'll have Jennifer, our operations manager, get that to you for sure.
That's wonderful and very generous of you. Thank you. So the next question
I will say about that really quickly. I have had so many great mentors and friends and helpers. The templates that I have built over the years are all cobbled together from things that other great, amazing mentors have taught me. So it's not me, it's these amazing people in this community.
Credit where credit is due. I love it. That was perfect. So we've got another question, and I love this one. What do you feel is the biggest challenge in getting clients to comply? My gut instinct is comply with what? That's my first question. But let's just make some assumption there that it's complying with keeping the conversations in Slack one way, keeping the conversations in Financial Sense another, getting them onboarded, all the things, comply. So
there's a couple of things. The biggest challenge is that piece that I keep reiterating, what's in it for me. So the biggest challenge is helping them to understand what's in it for them. So when I'm doing any sort of discovery with them right up front, there's a lot of questions around why did they call us? What do they want us to do for them? And then when we start to say to them, okay, this is why we use Slack, it ties back to those questions and answers. It ties back to why did you want to work with the profit constructors? And if you really truly want to work with the profit constructors for all of the things and all of the value that we bring to the table, then you'll see a lot of what's in it for me is the process and the running with the big dogs that we bring to the table. And the more that you get in tune with our process and how those processes roll, the better off your back office will be at creating their own process too. Oh, you're on mute again.
I that's killing my soul, but that's okay. We'll move forward. So the next question is from Jessica, and it is, we currently have a client that refuses to use Financial Sense for correspondence or even email and prefers a phone call. They're old school. What is your best advice to handle that? I'm going to answer that too. So let's go with you first.
What do you want? My question is, Jessica, what do you want? Because if you're totally cool and fine with working with them by a phone call, I know I have a lot of good friends and mentors in this space. And I have a really good friend and mentor who disagrees with like setting up certain boundaries around communication and will say, communicate in the way that your client respects and wants, right? And so that's fine. That's your own boundary that you're willing to set. So if you want to work with a client who wants to have a phone call and that's totally comfortable, you then go do that. If you want to push them into the Financial Sense space, I would do what Richard said earlier, force them into that space, show them what's in it for them, get them over there, get them doing it, or let them go and help them find someone who can.
I'm going to say you took most of the words right out of my mouth. You and I have worked together long enough and know each other very well. Absolutely. Everything you said, I reiterate. The other never mind, the thought left my head because I was trying to remember to mute myself as soon as I'm done. I'm going to go to the next question, which is, can you go into more detail about the two different onboardings?
I can. I want to address one quick thing because somebody said in the chat, you can't have a lot of clients like that. It's too costly. And I'm going to say you can have a lot of clients like that if you charge a really high price for that value.
That was the statement that I was trying to remember. And I am sorry. Thank you for sparking that.
Yeah.
It was saying,
it depends on what you want.
What will it cost them to make you happy making phone calls?
Yes.
So if that's triple the price, you'll make a phone call and you'll be happy about it. So either don't step outside those boundaries or find a way to make yourself happy.
Yes. Yep.
And thank you, MJ.
Yeah. And it's all about, that's why I started this business. I wanted to build the business that I wanted. And if you want to charge a really high price and let your client call you at midnight, you do that. That sounds good to me.
So Tonya, last question, because we've got about 45 seconds left, actually 32 seconds left. Are you doing that client onboarding in person or digitally?
On Zoom.
Always. Yes. And I'm going to say you probably take screen control, get them connected, do all the things.
Yes.
So that they're not wallowing through that.
Yes. Although we do let them control some things so they get used to clicking here and there too. Muscle memory.
Tonya, as always, a pleasure. I love working with you. Thank you for being a wonderful panelist today.
Thank you, Richard.
And we're done.
That was fun.
It was. We're still live.
Still live?
I think so.
Oh, we're still having fun.
Okay.